As the Hearthstone meta starts to get stale in the last month of the expansion, I find myself trying out some unique decks to see what they have to offer. I go through some of the lesser used cards and try to build a deck around an archetype, putting in both good and bad cards to see if I can create the synergy needed to make a competitive deck, or at least a deck I can play at rank 20. And it's while playing these experimental decks, you see the unique gameplay these archetypes bring, but you also see what weaknesses are holding the deck back. Evolved Shaman is a tier 2 deck, Big Priest and Silence Priest are both tier 3, Quest Exodia Mage is actually a deck. The point is, dreams come true. Decks rotate in and out of the competitive tiers of Hearthstone, and well, here are a few decks/archetypes that I wish worked in Hearthstone. Now by work, I mean just on a tier list. I don't need these decks to take over the meta, I just want to win around half of my games when playing them. I'll have the deck codes for the gameplay of this video, just know these decks aren't really that good. I think a few tweaks and cards added from future expansions could make these decks powerful enough that you actually play them to win, and not just to complete daily quests. Speaking of daily quests, if you have to play 75 Murlocs and you crafted the Shaman quest like I did, then it's time to dust that quest off. First up, let's talk about the positives. High impact, high speed, cards played in quick succession. Your goal is to summon 10 Murlocs and nothing can stop you. You're probably not going to win the game, but you're going to play a lot of Murlocs. Still, I think the deck has gotten better with some of the Knights of the Frozen Throne cards. A big surprise, but Murloc, the 2-mana 2/2 Murloc whose battlecry freezes a character, is actually really useful in this deck. Maybe the card was made for Freeze Shaman, but for the Murloc quest, it does a great job at 1, freezing big enemy threats, and 2, being a Murloc. Murloc is not a super powerful card, but if your opponent plays a big minion, freezing it is really good if you're trying to flood the board to set up for a War Leader next turn. The most noticeable addition from Frozen Throne is Ice Fishing, the 2-mana spell that draws you 2 Murlocs from your deck. It's an important card because it really helps keep you in the game.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
You have to play pretty aggressive for this quest to work, and not only that, but the 20 or so Murlocs you put in your deck are all below 4 mana, so card draw is a big necessity. Before Frozen Throne, only using Mana Tide Totem wasn't doing it, and the Curator was a bit slow, so other neutral minion cards had to be put in as a clunky solution. Overall, this made the deck weak, and a lot of the time you just had to hope to get call on the finishers so you could complete the quest and refill your hand. My deck now, with Ice Fishing, Mana Tide Totem, the Curator, Primal Fin Lookout, and Spirit Echo, gives me enough value that I never run out of cards. Now let's go to the reason the deck doesn't work. First off, a tragic tale, but with Frozen Throne came the mid-expansion patch that out of nowhere nerfed the War Leader. But the deck still didn't work before the War Leader patch, and I think the main issue is the quest reward, Megafin. Now usually when trying to find a solution to fixing a deck, I won't change the main factor of the deck, but Megafin's battlecry is really bad. It's great for completing that 75 Murloc quest I was talking about, but filling your hand with random Murlocs is never going to be competitive enough to make it worth putting in your deck. The closest solution I've gotten to is Spirit Echoing the Megafin when you play it, so you can essentially play it again when you run out of cards, again. The problem is, there are just too many bad Murlocs that just get destroyed by your opponent's more powerful cards, and you already know this because for the first half of the game you've had to play these Murlocs. Now I do have a solution. I think Megafin should still fill your hands with random Murlocs, but also from this point forward in the game, all of your Murlocs should have the battlecry Adapt. So for example, you play Bluegill Warrior, you discover from 3 adaptations, and you're able to instantly kill a big enemy minion. Another powerful example would be giving War Leader Stealth for a turn, but something as small as just giving a Murloc plus 3 health is still pretty nice. I think giving the Murlocs Adapt not only bumps up the power of the quest reward, but also keeps the theme of Ngoro and the gentle Megasaur Murloc synergy. I would love to have this change tested, and in the back of my mind I think maybe it would be a bit too strong, but you have to remember, to complete the quest, you're not just summoning 10 Murlocs, you're also filling your deck with a lot of bad cards. I mean, just look at Call in the finishers. 4 mana, spawn 4 1/1s, that's terrible. The reason you played the card is they're Murlocs, and the reward for putting these trash cards in your deck shouldn't be just more trashy minions, but better evolved Murlocs. I think this version of the Murloc Shaman quest would be probably a 4 to 5 tier deck, but definitely still a playable deck on ladder. I think making the Murloc quest more competitive would be a lot of fun, and you never know, maybe they nerfed the War Leader because they're going to release a card next expansion that would be so powerful that if Murloc still had the extra health from War Leader, it would just push the power level of Murlocs over the edge. Demons have always been in Warlock decks, but demon synergies have never been the main focus. Zoolock uses the powerful early demons, and the current control Warlock uses the more controlling ones. Demons are a core part of Warlock, but if you look back at the mean streets of Gadgetzan, Blizzard printed an interesting card, Cruel the Unshackled. 9 mana 9/7 with a no duplicate deck requirement that summons all demons from your hand. This is possibly the oddest Warlock legendary, but with the addition of Blood Reaver Gul'dan and a new expansion on the way, can a Warlock deck built around demon synergy work. If you want to keep in line with the cruel requirement, that means only one of each card in the deck. This also means we can put Kazakus in there, which is nice, but it also cuts the number of demons we can use in half. And there are only so many good demons, but the issue is you aren't rewarded for putting demons in your deck. There's Sacrificial Pact, Demon Fire, Blood Fury Potion, Sense Demon, but all of these suck butthole. Crystal Weaver is practically in the same category as the others, but Blood Reaver Gul'dan is one of those strong cards that promotes demon synergy. The reason you can play bad Murlocs or bad dragons in a deck built for those tribes is there are powerful cards that synergize with that tribe to make it worthwhile. Every tribe has their minions that are bad on their own, but they end up being good with other cards of their tribe. I don't think Blizzard needs to print more good demons, but they need to make more powerful demon synergy cards to reward players for choosing a demon over a neutral minion. And this is where I think Cruel the Unshackled could actually make for a really entertaining demon deck. If you can fill a deck with enough one-of demons, you can use Cruel to avoid some of the demon's negative battle cries. If Doomguard is the only demon you summon off of Cruel, for 9 mana you get to play a 7/9 and a 5/7 with charge, and you don't have to discard the 2 cards either, so that's pretty good. The problem with the deck right now is when you draw those negative battle cry cards, they're either just dead in your hand until you can play Cruel, or they're just bad cards to play because of their negative effect. By making demon synergies more powerful, it would allow Warlocks to survive longer in a deck built of demons, so they can play big cards like Cruel and Blood Reaver to get a lot of value off. I would love to see a sect of Control Warlock branch off that focuses more on demons. Still, if demons were made stronger, I don't know if Cruel would be a part of this deck. The requirement for Cruel greatly outweighs the advantage of summoning the demons from your hand. I don't think Cruel will ever be the most competitive version of Demon Lock, but if more synergies are put in, I think a demon deck with or without Cruel could be fun. I think I've honestly just convinced myself to dust Cruel after this video. It's been a while since I tried out Divine Paladin. Now, I've never played a Divine Shield Paladin that was at the top tier of the meta before, but with every few expansion, Blizzard seems to push Divine Spirit Paladin cards, and Knights of the Frozen Throne was one of those expansions where they printed 4 of them for Paladin. And the reason I'm attracted to Divine Shield decks is it's a simple but super powerful buff. It enables your minions to deal or take as much damage once without any consequences. And one thing I thought while playing Divine Paladin in this Frozen Throne expansion is, wow, this is clunky. I feel like the Divine Shield synergies are designed like I build decks, with way too much optimism. Basically, you have 2 sides to Divine Shield Paladin, giving Divine Shield and taking away Divine Shield for value elsewhere. I think the perfect game of Divine Paladin would be give all of your minions Divine Shield and then get value by taking them away before they're all popped. This really shows how a deck built around Divine Shield can be a lot different than a deck with just a few Divine Shield minions. Divine Paladin follows the same rule I talked about before, about dealing or receiving damage once without any consequences. But if you play the cards that benefit from taking Divine Shield away, it's like Divine Shield becomes a currency you're trying to hold onto. It's by far the most unique deck on this list, and it's daring your opponent to attack your shielded minions, or else you're going to benefit off the Divine Shields even more. Still, it's super clunky. It's a tempo deck that relies too much on drawing cards in the right order for it to work. Maybe the idea of Howling Commander is to draw that specific Divine Shield minion you need to start the process, but in reality, that card's just stanky. I think the simplest answer to make Divine Paladin work is to make more cards that give minions Divine Shield. There needs to be more ways, like Steward of Darkshire, that give Divine Shield over the course of the game. What if there was a Paladin card like Cobalt Scalebane that gave a random friendly minion Divine Shield at the end of the turn? If you look at Adapt, it's weighted as the same value as 3 tech, so the idea isn't really that far off. Cards that benefit from removing Divine Shield need more Divine Shield. Bolvar already works in decks, but for 2 Blood Knights and any Light Sorrows to work, Paladin needs to be able to reload the Divine Shields efficiently. In addition, you need to remember it's easy to get rid of Divine Shields. 1 damage board clears do the trick, so while people aren't teching against Divine Paladin right now, if it were more popular and people knew how to play against the deck, more ways of getting Divine Shield would be necessary to keep it competitive. What I like about making Divine Paladin stronger is Divine Shield doesn't mean aggro. Divine Shield minions almost always have lower stats for their cost, and to an opponent, this type of deck will ask them to weigh the cost and benefits of popping Divine Shield minions, because if they leave them up, it could lead to a big board swing later on. Divine Paladin has always kind of been there in the background as other decks went in and out of the competitive tiers, but I think it would be interesting for a 50% win rate Tempo Paladin to see play, because the gameplay is great. It's a pretty expensive deck to craft, and I wouldn't recommend anyone spend too much dust on it, but I am going to make a video on the deck soon, so if you aren't able to play this expansion, hopefully you guys will be able to see a more in-depth look on what the gameplay is like. Now I want to give honorable mentions to some of the decks that I think Blizzard wants to work, but I really don't understand where they're going with these decks, nor do I really want to play them. Freeze Shaman came out of nowhere, and it was seemingly made just because the expansion was snow themed. Is there any lore that prompts Shamans to use odd freezing abilities to put their own allies at a disadvantage? Shamans are supposed to be like Rafiki, the last airbender, and deal with earth, air, fire, water, and shit, but I don't see any mention of ice. I think this archetype attempt was pretty sad, and besides some possible cool combos with Marabi, I really don't need a Freeze Shaman, and I think Blizzard is moving on from the archetype as well. Discard Lock. A favorite of the custom Hearthstone community. How do you fix a flawed game mechanic? I've already expressed my disdain for the heart-wrenching RNG needed to play Discard Warlock, but I feel like the next expansion is all or nothing. Since Karazhan, Blizzard's been printing Discard aggressively to try to fill the hand of Disco Lock players, but alas, these cards, like the archetypes, just end up being discarded. But my top priority, number one deck that I wish worked in Hearthstone, my single prayer, every night as I look over the city on my fire escape. You guys saw it coming. I want Destructive Warlock to work. Eggshells litter the battlefield. Self-sacrifice is made for the glory of one's nation. We are all but human, and it is in our nature to be destructive. So if you don't know how Destructive Warlock works, the deck uses cards like Sanguine Revealer, Unwilling Sacrifice, Ravasor, Pterodax, etc. on egg cards like Runic Egg and Devilsaur Egg. Let me tell you why this is the greatest gaming experience of our lifetime. First step, you need to play the eggs. Eggs are zero attack minions with relatively low health and cost. The idea is you pay the cost up front for a bad minion and then gain more value once that minion is killed. So for 3 mana you get a 5/5 after you spend more destroying it. And let me just say Runic Egg is a bad example because that card just kinda sucks. Another thing that makes this archetype so entertaining is that the zero attack egg actually has an impactful board presence. You'd think having zero attack enemies would ignore it, but the low health deters opponents from using board clears. And if left on board, eggs are useful targets for buffing or egg activators. What are egg activators, you ask? These are cards like the ones I named before that destroy your own minions for a benefit. So where Unwilling Sacrifice isn't great when destroying a friendly minion you want to have on the board, when you use it to kill a 0/3, it's 2 birds 1 egg. What really got my blood pumping is the new expansion's card Carnivorous Cube, which is not only an egg activator, but an egg spawner. I talked about that card a little bit more in my Kobolds and Catacombs expansion showcase if you want to check that out, top right. But while this card is going to be great for Destructive Warlock, if Blizzard prints at least 2 more eggs in the next expansion, #expansion, this deck could be some competitive fun. I think it would vary in tier based on how powerful these eggs are, but if we just got 2 more eggs at the same power level as Devilsaur, I think we're cooking at a real nice tier 3 deck. It's a fun deck in the current meta, but I'd love to see a Destructive Warlock make it all the way to Legend. Well, those are just a few of the decks/archetypes that I feel would be refreshing to see in the competitive ladder more often. Let me know if there are any archetypes you'd want to see work in Hearthstone. Hopefully one of these archetypes makes it into the next expansion. That's all for me, and until next time, ta-ta.